Hello everybody and welcome back to another Monday Rules episode. Now before I get into this week's episode, first I'd like to apologize to Dagobert Duck for missing his fighter strafing replay where he strafes down 4 whole squadrons of bombers, killing 24 planes in one strafe, which would have made Dagobert the winner for the episode last week. Anyways, Dagobert, I apologize for that. Do check your email as I've sent you some doubloons. Anyhow, moving on to the winner of the Kawachi challenge. First up, the honorable mentions. In second, Glutamate, 87,415 damage. Third and fourth were both Lord Zath with 85,000 and 77,000 damage. And in fifth place, ADF Master, 76,228. There is one little shout out I want to give to Tomasi, who did 68,510 damage on the RU server, and I think this is the first time somebody on the Russian server has sent me a replay. So big shout out to you there, Tomasi, and also thank you for sharing the photos of your native home. It was really awesome to take a look at that and to see the I guess the countryside in the Ukraine. So do really appreciate that. Thank you for sending that as well. And of course, let's meet this week's winner, AnFilthyGuido in a Kawachi. And AnFilthyGuido does quite a lot of damage. So let's talk about this battle. First things first, AnFilthyGuido is on the Solomon Islands map and is heading north, which is generally not a bad idea considering that's where you can engage in a lot of sort of close quarters combat as the ships all sort of merge into one point. That does sort of eliminate one of the major weaknesses of the Kawachi, which is range. Had a Kawachi been on a bigger map where it wasn't so easy to close the distance, I don't think AnFilthyGuido would have done so well. However, Solomon Islands, nice close quarters map, lots of damage to be had. First up, enemy destroyer, turns around, offers the broadside, easy kill for AnFilthyGuido. That destroyer, however, really was in a bad place. I mean, in Izyaslav, I know you've got 5-kilometer torpedoes if you're fully upgraded, but really not a good idea to come running down here by yourself up against a cruiser, a battleship, and another destroyer, even though the other destroyer wasn't shooting. But still, just going up against St. Louis, really bad idea. Anyway, so AnFilthyGuido and his division mate in the St. Louis are both pushing up pretty much by themselves, and the rest of the team has gone south. This could be a big problem if the ships that are pushing north on the enemy team really know what they're doing. As you can tell on the map, there's a huge amount of them up there as well. In theory, had they all just decided to push all at once through that area, they should be able to push the side out, but AnFilthyGuido is going to show him that he's no slouch at all. And of course, one of the things about the lower tier battleships is the person who knows how to use AP efficiently generally tends to do better than a lot of people who don't have a clue. So AnFilthyGuido fires a salvo, lands a very nice citadel, and a couple of hits on the Karlsruhe, half the HP off the Karlsruhe right away. The Kawachi doesn't have the best dispersion either, mind you, at range, so a lot of times it is imperative that you try to close the range reasonably quickly, get into a range that is somewhat comfortable for the Kawachi to fight at, and then go from there. Another citadel, another hit. Karlsruhe and 2 salvos, almost dead. However, AnFilthyGuido's division mate gets detonated, which sucks. Immediately, he's only got a destroyer up here for support. Thank God the enemy Myogi isn't really landing any big hits yet. So Guido does the intelligent thing. Faced with overwhelming odds, he begins to turn around to disengage. While he's turning around, fires off one more salvo of armor piercing against a target that, had he been able to hit, he might have been able to do a lot of damage to the Karlsruhe. But for whatever reason, RNG didn't really grant him a hit, or the aim wasn't perfect. They only managed to get like 1 hit for 800 damage, so that was only an pen. But as he turns around, one of the St. Louis's on the enemy team pushes through, and with the Kawachi, you can immediately get guns around onto target because you've got guns on the other side that were reloaded, not doing anything. Gets himself another citadel hit. Still would have been in a lot of trouble though had the team pushed through, the enemy team pushed through between that gap there, because there were 2 battleships there and that St. Louis. But the Dursky manages to do good work and takes out a Wyoming, and that is super important because it prevents that Wyoming from immediately getting a lot of guns onto Guido. But with the Wyoming gone, the threat to Guido is drastically less, as he only has to really deal with a St. Louis and I believe a South Carolina. The enemy team also misplays us terribly. They're only up against a Kawachi and a destroyer that's running away now. They had overwhelming numbers, and the Karlsruhe and the Myogi all just took off. Had they kept pushing, I think they still would have eventually pushed this flank out, but for some bizarre reason, they just turned and ran, leaving a very, very manageable 2 versus 1 engagement for Guido, as he only has to worry about fighting the St. Louis and the South Carolina. And the St. Louis took 2 citadels from Guido, which is a lot of damage. Eventually, Guido does do enough damage that he turns his attention to the South Carolina, which is still at full HP. By the way, one little thing for the St. Louis captains out there: don't stop. Not when you're up against the battleship that's firing AP. Don't go slow. You know, be aggressive. Turn a lot. Throw the shot off. Don't like do what that St. Louis did, which was, I think, go at like maybe a quarter speed, maybe even full stop, because that got him wrecked. Anyways, good for a salvo onto the South Carolina. Nice amount of damage. And that's the thing, mind you, with battleships, is at the low tiers, a lot of battleships don't really have this idea of what they're doing with armor piercing yet. And they'll offer you these very, very, very nice broadsides. And with armor piercing, even if you don't citadel them, just penetration damage alone sometimes can be quite substantial. And that South Carolina is getting pounded. Eventually, when the South Carolina does actually realize that Guido's doing a lot of damage, you'll see what the South Carolina's firing. And if you said HE, you would be correct. And quite often, at the lower tiers, it's that choice of ammunition that sometimes will decide battles, just because a lot of players don't really understand how to really use AP, and they'll fire something and the shots won't do anything. They'll go, oh, it's kind of useless, and they'll just go over and use HE. But AP can decide things, because if you look at the lower tier players, a lot of them have a tendency of offering the broadside, sailing nice, easy, straight lines to shoot at. And with AP, there's a lot of citadels and a lot of penetration damage to be had if you know when to shoot. So eventually, the South Carolina realizes, hey, wait a minute, I've taken quite a bit of damage from this battleship over here that's been firing at me without consequences. So I'm going to start firing back, and as you can tell, there's the high explosive, which means not much damage to be done in the next little while. While the return fire salvos from Guido are doing things like that, 5,000 damage, which is quite a lot when a low tier battleship, when you've only got, what, 30-something thousand HP? 5,000 damage is a lot, because that's a sixth of your HP gone in one salvo. But now that Guido knows that the South Carolina is firing HE and won't be taking off a huge chunk of HP like that, Guido turns his attention instead to the really, really low HP St. Louis. Sometimes people can get a little sort of target fixated on the one battleship and ignore things around him. And Guido picks up the St. Louis, kills him off first, knowing that the St. Louis actually is going to pose a bigger threat, because lots of shells, little shells, hitting at a really fast pace, first of all, can set more fires, and second, the damage is a lot in terms of just sort of consistent damage per second. The South Carolina, with its really, really slow rate of fire, isn't going to pose all that big of a threat, especially as it continues to fire HE, and in some cases hitting the belt and doing no damage whatsoever. Guido fires back. That shot, RNG didn't, it's like some of the RNG shots, like you see the shells just go off into the, I don't know where. But anyways, finally, one good shot there. Citadel, one target hit, over 9,000 damage. Next shot gets another kill. So very, very nice kills there, by the way, on those ships. I do have to say that the enemy team didn't really do a very good job in this battle. They played this sort of terribly, because if you think about it, at the earlier stages of this battle, they had all those ships in the north. All, like, their entire fleet was north. And they basically gave up that entire push while confronted by one destroyer and a Kawachi. And that indecisiveness, whether to push or to go back or whatever, really costs the enemy team a chance at even winning, because had they pushed hard and focused down Guido, they would have been at their cap already. And considering that Guido's team had all gone south and gone the long way up the other side, they wouldn't have really had a good chance to sort of turn around and respond. So, misplays there. Enemy team has 2 ships left, a Karlsruhe and a Wyoming, although the Wyoming's still at full HP. However, against an enemy team that has such a huge advantage-wise in terms of battleships and carriers, the Wyoming really isn't going to be able to do all that much. Karlsruhe gets citadeled, and that's the thing about the Kawachi. Gotta learn to use AP on those cruisers, especially the lightly armored ones. They die quickly. So by this point in time, Guido's already done 81,652 damage, which is quite a good number when you're considering that, you know, it's a Kawachi in a tier 4 game. So definitely good amounts of damage already, but Guido wants more because he still has that Wyoming in front of him, and the Wyoming's in a really, really bad position. First, he takes a bunch of torpedoes from the carrier, and second, his guns are probably all pointed in the other direction, so when Guido gets around, that Wyoming really isn't going to have any guns on him. And not only that, but I don't think the Wyoming is even really aware that Guido is here. So Guido finally pops up, fires, and RNG decides, nope, we're not going to give you any hits on that fully flat broadside of the Wyoming. The Wyoming, I think, came out, spotted Guido now, and immediately went, oh, this is not good, and tries to turn around to, whether that's engage, yeah, he tries to turn around and engage, and you can tell that the Wyoming is using armor piercing, so here's a battleship that actually kind of knows what he's doing. Guido, I think, looks at the situation and goes, I've got 9,000 health left, that Wyoming has 25k, I think it's a good time to go for a ram, and so he noses in. The Wyoming, I think, is desperately trying to bring his rear guns into the fight here. And Guido is like, nope, I'm gonna come here. Look at that. That's an awesome view. That's an awesome view. Just full speed ahead. Banzai. Oh, and then yeah. I mean, the Wyoming with 12,000 HP left is going to feed Guido the remainder of his HP in terms of damage. And that's going to contribute to Guido winning last week's Monday Rules Challenge. So congratulations, Guido. Keep your eye open on your email as I'll be sending you some doubloons. Oh, yeah, of course. And the total number of damage there, 96,981. No screenshots, but I managed to grab it off the stats page. So definitely good job there, Guido. Although win rate with the Kawachi is still pretty low, so still a bad ship, I guess, overall. Although you can have really good battles every once in a while. Alright, moving on to another topic real quickly. There is no Monday Rules Challenge this week, just because I'm really behind on a bunch of other videos that I want to make. So I'm going to try to save next Monday to catch up a little bit with some of these episodes. So yeah, you guys have a bit of a free week without any challenges. Challenges will resume, I believe, the week after this, aside from all that. Hope you all have a really, really good week, and always remember, Mondays rule.